Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Hour, a show I do twice a week where I throw a little chaos into Star Trek and by reviewing a random episode. So we're back, or I'm back, after having to take a break due to work and scheduling, and so now I'm back on schedule. It's Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and um, and it's time to do the review. So we left off. The last one I did was Living Witness, and then the random episode generator brought up Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Sacrifice of Angels. So this is during the Dominion War, and uh, so there's a little bit of a recap. Last time on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, they go through all of that and basically what to recap on what's going on. The station is occupied at this time by the Dominion or the Cardassians, and the Jem'Hadar, which is the last time I talked about Deep Space Nine, I could not think of their name, the Jem'Hadar, and I also thought it'd be funny if you spelled it like Jim Kirk, Jim Hadar. Hi, my name is Jim Hadar. Anyway, uh, just random thoughts that pop into my head sometimes. Uh, and um, there's a little bit of a resistance group with Kira, Rom, Lita, and now Jake has joined. Odo is doing his part too, but he's also with the female founder, and he linked up with her in the previous episode, which caused a problem for them. He was supposed to meet up with them and do some sort of sabotage thing, and Rom was caught and is currently in the holding cell. I have some, uh, along with me being back, this sty or whatever the fuck is going on with my eye is back. It seems to come back every couple weeks if I don't get proper amount of REM sleep or something. There's like fluid builds up, or I don't know what it is, and it's driving me nuts. And I can barely. I put some gel in my eye to soothe it, so my eyes are kind of blurry, as if my eyesight was already blurry as it is. I have to put on these glasses to see from or hold pieces of paper from a distance to read them. Anyway, enough about that. Uh, so that's the sort of recap of what's going on, and then we get into the teaser of the episode. So the Dominion fleet, you see the Dominion fleet and you see the Federation fleet, and they're facing face to face, sort of like an old school like Civil War battle or Revolutionary War or whatever. And uh, Cisco's in charge of the fleet, and he basically wants to punch a hole in the fleet so to he can get to um, the wormhole, because they also said that Cisco had also said that they're not going to go after Earth. They're going to go after the wormhole because that's the key to controlling everything between the gamma quadrant and the alpha quadrant. And so he needs to punch a hole in there, and that's how they, if they can get to, of course, before the occupation, Rom had set up some mines And you know, the, it's been a while since I've seen Deep Space Nine, but these recaps, brings it all back. It's pretty easy to follow along if you've seen it before. But yeah, Rom has set up some mines, which prevents the uh, Jem'Hadar or the Dominion and the Jem'Hadar that are stuck in the Gamma quadrant. So Dukat is working on a plan to um, set off the mines so it opens up a wormhole because the wormhole's closed at this time. The prophets or the wormhole aliens or whatever you want to call them uh, shut everything down. So they basically want to attack the Cardassians in the fleet to get them to sort of break away so they can create that's what creates that hole. And Sisko, basically tells the fleet to fire at will, and that's the end of the teaser. So uh, back on the station, Dukat is looking at the battlefield, the plans, and he's looking at a screen with all the different ships and stuff that are in the sector, and he says that uh, Sisko's plan is very smart, and then Wei Yun agrees, and Dukat turns to Wei Yun, and the female founder is there, and I forget. I don't think she has a name, does she? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Uh, the actress' name is Salome something. She was in the Chase on TNG. Anyway, don't want to get too sidetracked. But Jensen, is that right? Anyway, doesn't matter. She's there, and Dukat turns to Wayun and says, "What's so brilliant about this plan? And why don't you explain to the founder?" Uh, and he kind of obviously he doesn't know what the plan is, and he says, I wouldn't dare try to explain anything to the founder, and they don't like each other obviously, and Dukat explains that Sisko's trying to lay some bait to get them away from the fleet a little bit so he can punch the hole in and get to the wormhole. And then Dukat says he's going to go ahead and spring a trap for him and allow him to come through the hole, and then it can close in on him, and so he's counter trapping them. So then Damar is talking to Dukat and proposes that they arrest Rom's acquaintances, being Kira, Lita, um, Jake, and then they can't do anything with Odo. And then Quark is sort of like in on it, but he's kind of passively in on it and not really doing anything yet, I don't think, at this point. And then he says, Damar goes on to suggest confining Zia, not Zia, Zayal. Zia is a YouTuber that is pretty hot and is constantly walking around in her like skimpy bikinis and stuff, and that woman knows what she's doing because she gets like tons of super chats from simps out there. I hate using these terms, but it's easier to say that, then what, people understand the term. But Zayal, which is Ducat's daughter, if anyone out there doesn't know already. And he wants to confine her to quarters because he thinks she might have been helping them with the sabotage, and Ducat gets pissed off about that, says no. Uh, so Kira, Quark, Lita, Jake, Lita and Jake are all discussing plans they're on the promenade, discussing plans and what their next move is going to be. And they decide they want to shut off the power to the ship by using a bomb. And Quark doesn't like this idea because he would lose customers. So, but reluctant. Well, they all kind of laugh in his face, and I guess he reluctantly goes along with it. And Damar shows up, and he wants to bring them in for questioning. So, because in the earlier part of that discussion, Ducat had said we can't arrest them because the Bajorans would make a big deal out of it, and that would interfere with our alliance we have with the Bajorans. But we could bring them in for questioning. So that's what he said. He says, we're bringing you in for questioning. Kira says, that, not to worry. She basically can't resist. So then Ducat springs his trap, and back on the Defiant, Dax says that the Cardassian ships are moving away, and somebody, I think it was Chief O'Brien, maybe, says that the plan is working, or it might have been Nog, don't remember, and I just watched this a couple hours ago. That's how fast my memory fades, but which is why I have these notes. And Cisco realizes that it's a trap, and he's like, it's a trap, but and Bashir says it's a trap, but we're gonna do it anyway because this may be our only opportunity to get through to the wormhole. So back on the station, Ducat and Weyoun are kind of arguing with each other, and Ducat pours a drink, and he's sort of like prematurely celebrating, and Weyoun says, "Don't you think that's a little, premature? You're not supposed to repeat yourself like that, but I just did. I'm breaking all the rules." And then he talks about the Bajoran occupation and how he wasn't in charge then, and that had he had been in charge, he would have done things differently. And then he goes into this delusional rant, and this is the beginning. You see this more in season 7, but this is the beginning of him being like this. He becomes like a cult leader at some point. Then he changes his face to look like a Bajoran, and gets in with Kai Wynn, and I guess that they were getting it on, and which leads to the finale and all that stuff. But there's a lot of there's the episode, is it Waltz, where him and Cisco crash land on a Cisco's gonna take him on. He's supposed to be taking him to trial, and they crash land on this planet or moon or whatever, and he starts losing it. But so this is the beginning of that, and that's a really, really great episode. I mean, I hope I get around to it. Uh, it's waltz, right? I always get that confused with duet. Duet is another really good, like I think his first season episode with the judge from Ghostbusters 2. Anyway, so he starts saying how they didn't the Bajorans didn't appreciate him enough for what he did to help them out, and how there should be a statue in the Capitol and all this stuff. And Wayne is just kind of looking at him like he's crazy and stuff like that. So that's the beginning of that delusional stuff. I get he's delusional from the very first episode, but season one. But it really takes hold in season 6 and then season 7. Then Odo and the female founder are talking, and Odo's upset because he's basically saying, "These are my friends out there. They're being killed or they're in danger." And he's worried about it, and she tells him not to worry, that the link is more important. And he says that that's what he keeps telling himself. And then she says, you're in love with Kira, and that'll fade once you permanently join the link. And then he says, she tells him that she's going to be executed anyway. So it's and I was like, why would you tell him that? I haven't gotten to my final thoughts, but like, why would you tell him that? He's already fragile. This is a fragile alliance that you've got him. You got him in your grip. You don't tell him, hey, I'm going to kill your friend that you're in love with. You would keep that to yourself, and then to keep him, from defecting or whatever. Anyway, on the Defiant, Cisco, they're being fired on. There's 2 other Federation ships that are kind of escorting them, and they get destroyed, and he calls for evasive maneuvers, and they're taking heavy fire. They lost the aft shield, and they can't cloak, because Garrick's with them, and he says, why don't we cloak? And O'Brien says that they can't cloak, and right as things are looking bad, the Klingons show up. They were waiting on the Klingons, but they run late, and Worf is with Martok on his ship, and Worf says that it took a little bit of convincing Gowron to let them, to expend some resources to help them, even though they're allied with the Federation. But whatever. And there's a later on episode where Worf gets into it with Gowron, and then Martok does as well, and which is also an excellent episode. And then that allows the Defiant to break a hole in the Dominion lines. So then back on the station, Dukat, what have I wrote down? Dukat, they're talking about how the lines are, how the Defiant broke through, and Dukat says not to worry, that we're in a few hours the mines will will detonate, and the wormhole will be open, and the our friends on the gamma system will come through. And if Cisco wants to commit suicide, then go ahead and I'll let him. So Zael is going to her quarters, and Quark sneaks up behind her and covers her mouth and says, "Look, I'm not going to hurt you. I just need to know if you can make this some sort of Bajoran dish." And so they bring the dish to where Kira and all of them are being held. Kira, Lita, Jake, Rom, and they go to the guard and they say they just want to bring this dish. He wants to inspect it, so he said, well, at first he resists, um, because he says that they can eat the same food that all the other prisoners eat. And then Zael pulls a, "Do you know who I am?" You know, one of those. And he agrees to let them bring the dish, but he wants to inspect it, so he's looking closely at it. And at that time, Zael pulls a hyper spray, pops him in the neck, and he passes out. So then Worf comes through, or not Worf, Quark has some Romulan phasers, or not Romulan, Cardassian phasers, and puts them at the Jem'Hadar who are guarding the cell, and tells them to not move, and then tells the Jem'Hadar to open the cell, to let down the force field. And then Zael points out that he had told them to not move. So a little joke there. So now Quark is fully in the Resistance cell, you know, and he the Jem'Hadar like starts to do something, and he kills both of them, and then he's kind of like in shock, and Kira says, "Quark, you know, take down the force field." And I've always wondered this in Star Trek. You know, they have, other than Enterprise, they always have these force fields. And what happens if the power goes out? Do people just escape? They don't have like actual bars or doors. You know, you would think that that would factor in, but it never does. And it happened. And then, you know, Strange New Worlds, they had a guy on the brig, and he just walked right through the force field because he's magic or something. And they didn't explain it at all. And that character was horrible. That I don't want to even get started on it, but y'all went to bat for that show quite a few times, and then it's like Linkin Park. You know, in the end, it doesn't even matter. So then they go. Then there's like a shootout as they escape. Oh wait, first there's Odo and the female founder, and Wayun interrupts them. They're in Odo's quarters, and Wayun tells them that Kira has escaped, and that they need to go to the main part of the ops or whatever. And Odo says that he'll be safe, you know, in his quarters. He's fine. So then on the Defiant, there's like 11 minutes left until the mines go off, and then back on the station, Um, there's like a shootout, and they're in the corridors and stuff, and they they all of a sudden they hear Bajoran weapons going off. So I guess they can tell the difference between phasers, and and then they stand up and they look around, and Odo has come to the rescue, and Odo and the other Bajoran security officers come to their rescue. So they still want to go with this plan of cutting off the power to the station. So they scurry um, Kira and Rom into like these the it's not Jeffries tube, but it's kind of like it. I don't know what you call it, but and then Kira says the rest of y'all hide. Find somewhere where you can hide. So they take off, and then Odo says that he'll create enough distractions, to kind of keep the Cardassians occupied. So then Rom has to cut off the power to the station. Well, they're running out of time, and he says that I'm not going to have time to do this, the whole station. So he, they say they can cut off power to the station's weapons array, because if they don't have weapons, they can't shoot off the mines. So then the lines are falling apart, um, and they are able to shoot the mines off. So Rom says we're too late, and then the mines go off, allows the Dominion fleet to enter the wormhole, and so Cisco orders the Defiant to enter the wormhole. Uh, Basically, he can't take off. He can't take on the whole fleet, but he can at least try to stop them, or hold them off a little bit. So then orders all strength to the forwards, all power to the forward shields, and then he ends up that in that little white space where the prophets are, and he sees the prophets, and the prophets are telling him that the game must continue. And he's like, what game are you talking about? And he eventually figures out that they're talking about his life, that what he's doing is suicide. And he says, though, if I have to sacrifice myself and my whole crew in order to stop the Dominion from coming through, then that's what I'm going to do. And he says to them, you could do something, and they say, we don't interfere with corporeal matters. And he says, to hell you don't. Um, and this is a little bit of Captain Kirk in here. I like it, but he's like, to hell you don't. You have the Bajorans treating you like gods, and basically created a religion around your existence, and you always say that you are of Bajor, and you interfere with their affairs, from time to time, and so then they agree. They say that Cisco is of Bajor, and so then he reappears back on the ship, and they say that the phasers are locked, and the Dominion fleet all of a sudden disappears. And Dax is saying, did they cloak? And Cisco says, no, I don't, where they're at, I don't think they're coming back. And the Defiant exits the wormhole, and of course Dukat is losing his shit, because he thought, he was going to be that they were going to eat. This whole plan was going to work, and they're going to take over the Federation and all this stuff, and he's going to be like the ruler of the universe or whatever. Again, you start to see more of his delusional thinking. Um, so then Damar starts saying that we need to leave. That it's time to go. And Dukat says he wants to find Zael, and Damar says it's too late. We gotta go. We can't. We don't have time for that. And so he's running around the corridors looking for her, and finally runs into her, and she says that she loves him and that she can't hate him, and they hug and stuff, and he says it's fine, but we gotta go. The Federation is taking the station back, and she says that she's not leaving. She wants to stay there. And at this time, she has a relationship with Garrick, which they don't talk about much in this episode, but you see it. And then she confesses to helping the Resistance, and he kind of looks at her and says that he forgives her and that it's fine, but and then right as there she's about to walk away, Damar kills her, and then he flips out, and he kind of just like you know he's losing it. So then Worf arrives, and Jadzia is there, and they say that the wedding's back on, and then everybody else is kind of reuniting with each other. Miles and Bashir are planning to go to the Holosuite, but Garrick is looking for Zael, and he can't find her. And then somebody says, "Where's Kira?" I forget who says that, and they say she's in the infirmary with Zael. So Garrick hears that and goes to the infirmary, and she's already dead. It's too late. I mean, they can't do anything. And so then Dukat is in the holding cell, and he's talking to himself, basically saying, "I forgive you," over and over. And Sisko says, "See if Bashir can do something to help him." So he's losing his shit. He's lost it. And then Dukat says, "I even forgive you," and he has Sisko's baseball and hands it back to him. And if you remember, when they first took over, he said something. Sisko had said something like, "I'll be back. That baseball will be back in my possession," or so. I don't remember the exact line, but it's like Enterprise. When you have these multiple arc episodes, it's kind of hard to. You kind of want to grade them as like a whole episode, but it's still possible to grade them as an individual episode. And I think overall, I thought it was a 7.5 out of 10. There's a lot of good action sequences. There's character development, whether it be good or bad. Odo finally turns on the female founder, which he was going to do anyway. He's not going to turn bad, but he was flirting with it. And then of course the bickering between Dukat and Weyoun is always funny. They managed to give Quark something to do, and have a little fun there. the whole thing with ZL, which is, she kind of grew. They rescued her. So Kira and Ducat like rescued her when she was like younger. So there's, I think, three different actresses play her because she grows up throughout the show. But let's see what's being said out in the chat. And we have Gavin Blackburn who says hello. Says styes can be very persistent. Yes, they can. This has been going on for like almost a month now. And then Michelle Ferry's here. Yeah, Michelle Ferry also wondered about force fields. I mean, it's convenient. I'm not gonna knock the show for that because it's in TOS. It's in all of them except for Enterprise. Enterprise has an actual holding cell with a door that locks and stuff like that. And then Gavin just goes on to say hello to Michelle Ferry. So now we get to the portion of the night where fate chooses the next episode. But before I get to that, I want to talk about plans for this channel. As I've said before, on Friday nights I'm going to do my unplugged session where I play guitar and stuff, and we'll see. Maybe I'll go a little bit longer this week. I just wanted to get the first one out of the way, just a quick 30 minutes, just to kind of shake some of the dust off, But maybe Friday, maybe this time I can do a little bit longer. My schedule has changed again, and it's more favorable to be able to do this type of stuff that I want to do on this channel. It's actually gotten better. So I was going to do a Monday night stream at 8 o'clock where I talk about a Bond film, but I'm going to have to say 9 o'clock instead. I'll still do it, but it'll be 9 o'clock. And haven't decided if I want to do a movie review once a month. And it will be a movie that I've more than likely seen. I'm just going to have to, pick, just, again, randomly pick a movie. And then if there's something like another Superman movie comes out, or something that I go to the theaters to see, I will do a review of that on that Monday instead of. So I haven't decided if I want to do it every week, twice a week, twice a month or once a month. But we'll start with just this one, and I'm gonna do Casino Royale. I know a lot of people don't like Daniel Craig Bond. It's hit and miss for me, but I really, really, really enjoy Casino Royale. The first Bond movie. I'm sort of a normie when it comes to Bond. I haven't seen all of them. I love. I like Pierce Brosnan, and GoldenEye was the first one that I seen in theaters. and Sean Connery, I've seen bits and pieces of Roger Moore's Bond. I've seen bits and pieces of all the other ones. So Dalton and George Lazenby, that one on Her Majesty. That's the best theme, I think, on Her Majesty's Secret Service. That's probably the best theme. May not be the best movie, but the best theme. Uh, I think I kind of like Dalton a little better than Roger Moore. Anyway, Casino Royale. I feel like it's a. I don't want to give too much of my thoughts away, but I feel like it's a uh, one of the like if nobody had ever seen Bond before, and they said which one would you start with? I don't know. Would I start with the first one with Doctor No? Probably, but if you want like a nice modern modern take post Cold War, GoldenEye's a great one, but I think Casino Royale is there's something I just really like about it, and I'll try to put those thoughts together on Monday at 9. Okay, now let's get to, and then of course Friday at 9, I'll do the unplugged session. And as far as again, want to thank Admiral Teague, if you're out there listening, for having me on his show this past Saturday. I pre-gamed a little too much, so I had to bow out. Um, so I'll try to be more prepared next time, so that I can actually talk about season 3, or talk about whatever we're talking about. So if he has me on again. All right. So random episode generator. Now it's messed up. It's not on. I'm not gonna do Voyager, but I'm probably gonna get it stuck with a Voyager episode anyway. Uh, so let's press the randomize again button. And told you, it's just another Voyager season 7, episode 6, Inside Man. I believe this is one where. Actually, I don't. I'm not sure about this one. There's one where the Doctor has to hide inside um, Seven's ocular thing on her eye. Uh, I don't know if that's the one or not, because they run into a race of people that are that don't like holograms or something. Well, there's a couple episodes like that. Let's see. Yeah, Gavin says, yes, Teague streamed. It took him a long time. There were so many people on the stream, on the panel, that it took him a long time to get through introductions and all this stuff, and it was almost like an hour and a half, or because we were also talking before the show started for about 10-15 minutes, and so by the time he got to me, I was like, I could barely like think, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to just say what when the show is and what time, and I don't think I even did the time. And then they kept talking before they even got to talking about Enterprise. They kept talking about other stuff, and I was finally like, I gotta get. I gotta go. I'll see you in the chat, and maybe make some comments in the chat. But next time, if he has me on again, I'll kind of try to be a little better about that. And Gavin also says it's another Voyager episode. So yeah, I can't avoid it. It's like every once in a while I get thrown a bone. So eventually I'll get through all of Voyager, and then what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do then? Universe. Michelle Ferry says the universe is. I think the universe is trying to tell you to rewatch Voyager. I have been rewatching Voyager. If you go on Pluto TV, you have Enterprise, you have TNG, TOS, Deep Space Nine and Voyager all for free. And I used to turn it on, like, I would turn one on, TOS, say, for example, and it would cycle through all the episodes, and then it would go to, like, TNG. So I used to turn that on and have it on in the background while I'm doing other stuff. And every once in a while, I would get bored with TOS and TNG because I'm seeing the same episodes over and over and over. So I'd click the Deep Space Nine, and then that same thing, and then I'd click to Voyager, and so yeah, I've rewatched Voyager technically over the past few years, quite a few times. Now, was I always paying attention? No. So yeah, maybe, and I guess people are now, instead of watching Strange New Worlds and all that, they're like the Gen Z or the kids these days are watching Voyager. Like people that are just now getting into Star Trek, like they like it. So maybe it helps with my channel. I don't know. Uh, Michelle also says, yeah, it does seem that way. The universe. So we'll do it. What did I say? It was episode 7, Inside Man. Yeah. So tomorrow night, 8 p.m., we'll talk about Inside Man, season 7, episode 6 of Voyager, and then we'll see what the universe says after that. Probably be another Voyager episode. So I want to thank Gavin Blackburn for showing up, Michelle Ferry for showing up. You guys are here every time, and I can't thank you enough. I've actually gained some subscribers over the past couple weeks. I think some of it is due to Admiral Teague. I want to thank anybody that's lurking out there, and anybody that watches this in the future. I'm the Dead Man. This is the Red Hour, and I will be back tomorrow night, 8 p.m., to talk about Voyager. So have a good night, everyone. Live long and prosper. I mean, you see my United Federation and Planet shirt. Figured I'd wear a Star Trek shirt today. Haven't worn this one in a while. I've got another one. I've got 2 other ones. One was part of a Halloween costume. I might break that one out. And then another one that's kind of like a polo golf shirt, but it has the Delta on it. Oh God. Anyway, have a good night, everyone.